Greetings, travelers. My name is Cynthia, and today I would like to give you some tips for the game Genshin Impact. Yes, many similar videos exist, but I've seen less of them the longer the game has been out. It feels like we're missing guides that have some more recent info regarding Genshin. Therefore, I'd like to bring you a video on this topic that is actually from the current year. If you're watching this in 2025 or beyond, I apologize that it isn't quite so current. This video will discuss how to efficiently spend your resin, ways to recycle excess materials into useful things that you may actually want, and which characters you should use. These are all things I learned along the way as an AR60 player, or maybe things I learned from watching other people's videos. This isn't necessarily a beginner's guide to Genshin, where some of these tips apply to new players, others apply to players of all adventurer ranks. My goal here is to provide some simple tips and pieces of advice, not a full-blown guide. I have one of those typed up, 20 pages in total, but that's a story for another day. With all that said, let's get into it. Tip number 1. It's okay to farm 4-star artifacts. I see so many guides for Genshin telling you to wait on farming artifacts until you can obtain 5-star ones, or at least until you're a higher AR. While I do find this tip useful, it's only useful to an extent in my opinion. I fully understand that at some point you might need to upgrade your characters and their equipment to progress further. 3-star and below artifacts from exploration can only get you so far, especially if you're not upgrading them. Additionally, you can use leveled 4-star artifacts to level up the 5-star ones once you get them. Will a level 16 4-star artifact get your 5-star artifact to level 20? No, but it can save you a bit of time. If you do start farming for 4-star artifacts earlier in the game, don't worry too much about getting perfect stats right off the bat. I suggest looking for main stats you want, even over set bonuses. But set bonuses are really nice too, don't get me wrong. Focus on these things, but don't spend all your resin every day on these artifact domains. To sum up this point, 4-star artifacts can provide you with a great power upgrade, so if you want to farm for them once you unlock the ability to do so, I'd say it's a good idea. However, don't spend too much resin on this, and that brings me to my next point. Tip number 2. In early game, use resin for leveling your characters more than artifacts. Where I did just suggest farming for 4-star artifacts, especially if you're stuck on a certain part of the game, I don't suggest spending all your resin in this area. For the early game, I'd suggest focusing on leveling your characters to whatever their max level is. In order to do this, you have to fight world bosses and collect their materials, and you also need talent books. A character's level and their talents are more important when you first start the game than the level or quality of their artifacts. Again, artifacts are a great way to increase your character's power level, but there's less of a need for them in the early game. Instead, spend your resin on lead lines, world bosses, and talent domains. Tip number 3. Spend Primogems on Intertwined Fates, don't worry about Acquaint Fates. If you've played Genshin for any amount of time, this tip might seem obvious. However, I remember spending my Primos on Acquaint Fates back when I first started. I'd go back and forth on which kind I bought from the shop. If I bought an Intertwined Fate last time I had 160 Primos, I'd buy an Acquaint Fate next time. I realized after a time that this wasn't the best course of action, and I look back on that and laugh at it. If you're doing the same as past me, no shame of course, it can be difficult to learn everything about this game anyway. If you're someone who buys a Fate every time you have 160 Primos, then I highly suggest spending them on Intertwined Fates only. 9 times out of 10, you'll want a limited character or maybe even a limited weapon, both of which are obtained with the Intertwined Fates. Of course, this isn't me giving you permission or my blessing to pull or not to pull, it's simply a suggestion I'm making to make the most of your Primogems. Tip number 4. Parametric Transformer and Crystalfly Trap. Okay, it doesn't really sound like a tip when I phrase it like that. Oh well. What I want to discuss here are 2 ways to recycle unwanted materials into something more desirable. Let's start with the Parametric Transformer. This tool is obtainable through the Liyue story quest called Tian Shou Treasure Trail. Apologies for any mispronunciations, by the way. You can do this quest once you are adventurer rank 31, and the starting location is Liyue Harbor. The Parametric Transformer needs 150 materials in order to activate. These materials can be ingredients, ores, or enemy drops. Once it's full, you then have to attack the Parametric Transformer with elemental energy. So, skills, bursts, catalyst users' normal or charged attacks, and bow users' aim shots. There will be a progression bar above the Parametric Transformer to demonstrate its current charge level. After it's charged, it will disappear and give you materials in exchange. These materials can be Mora, character EXP materials, weapon EXP materials, talent books, and elemental slivers or fragments. You can use the Parametric Transformer once every 6 days and 22 hours, or essentially 7 days. The higher the quality of materials you put in, then the higher quality of materials you'll receive. There are breakdowns of which materials get you what specifically, but I don't want to include that here. If you're really curious about it, then feel free to look it up. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys just how the Parametric Transformer works real quick. So I'm going to my inventory. I'm going to go to this section for the gadgets. I'm going to click on it right here, place it. Alright, you can see it's in front of me now. So now I will select it, shut up, Scaramouche. And see now, if you look at the bottom, the quality, 0 out of 150, that's how many I still need to put in. So I don't have any in right now. I need to put in 150 in order for it to initiate the transmutation. So let's see, what do I have a whole lot of? I have a lot of slimes, so what I can do is select it. And then I can, in the bottom left, see how many I've put in there. So I could do, let's do like 25 maybe, because I think that's a good number. Then we can go along here. I'm going to select some dead line branches. I'll put 25 of those in. And now you can see it says 50 out of 150, so I just need to put 100 more supplies in. Honestly, not that bad. Pretty easy, pretty simple. So I will keep filling this up. Oh, we have ore too, and stuff you've collected in Overworld. So I have a ton of white iron chunks, so I will probably put in 10 of those. What else do I have a whole lot of that I don't need? Mint is something I get a lot of, and I really don't need that. Maybe I'll do 20. Should I do 25? Probably. Alright. And one more thing. Let's see, what do we got? Oh, I get a lot of Marcotes. I have a lot of Sumer roses. Maybe I'll put in the last bit for this. Alright, so now that I have 150 things in here, I'm gonna hit the triangle button for PS4, whatever it is for y'all, to initiate transmutation. Yes, confirm. And now what I need to do, you see, it has 0% above it, so I'm going to attack it with elemental abilities, like Wanderer's auto attacks. I like doing it in the street, essentially, because if you're like me and using pyro characters, you don't want to accidentally light yourself on fire. So I'll just keep working on this until it reaches 100. Just like, yep, and there it disappears, and now it shows us all we get. So you see I got Mora, Here's Wit, Guide to Justice, Varnata Lazarite Sliver, and Teachings of Resistance, you know, all that. So that is how you use the Parametric Transformer. So what about the Crystalfly Trap? This is a relatively recent addition to the game, and it can be quite useful, especially if you don't want to hunt down crystal flies every day. To give you some context, you use crystal cores from crystal flies to craft condensed resin, which can make farming for materials faster. Therefore, it's really nice to have plenty of crystal cores on hand. You get the Crystalfly Trap by reaching Reputation level 3 in Fontaine. Once deployed, you can put materials in it like the Parametric Transformer. It only takes ores, however, and once you put 30 in, the Crystalfly Trap will activate. Each piece of ore gives the trap 10 energy, so once it reaches 300 energy, it also means you've put 30 ores into it. You then have to wait 7 days for it to trap the crystal flies. At the end of this period, you return to the trap and you can claim 15 crystal cores. Some may find this an insignificant number of crystal cores, and if you're crafting condensed resin every day, I do see that. It's not really that many, but it's still a good way to passively gain them, especially if you don't use ore all that often. Alright guys, now I'm going to show you how the Crystalfly Trap works. As you can see, I'm in my inventory, and you can see the Parametric Transformer says it has 6 days, essentially 7 days until I can use it again. And right next to it you see I have the Crystalfly Trap, so I'm going to deploy that. And then once I do that, you can see it's right in front of me. Shut up. Shut up. Alright, so you can see when I select it to initiate it, you see I have all my options of what I can put in it. It's a bunch of ore, and for me, because I get a bunch of white iron chunks, I will probably... Oh, you can see that. Okay, didn't mean to do that. Select, I'm probably just going to max it out on this. There you go. You have that. And now I will hit activate, and it will just sit here.
If someone can't handle it, Maybe that's their problem.
Anyway, so now it's just going to sit here, and 7 days later I can come back and get it. I'm probably not going to record myself getting all the crystal flies at the end of this, but I just wanted to show you guys. And then also, when I go to map, it will show you where your Crystalfly Trap is, you see? So that's pretty handy. I like to put it next to waypoints, so you know where it is, essentially, and it's easy to get after it's done. So, alright. Tip number 5. Try to only use characters from regions you've unlocked or explored so far. Now, why would I say this? Well, if you obtain a character from Inazuma before you've even been to Inazuma, it's going to be difficult to build them. I believe you can unlock waypoints in other regions before you've started their related Archon quests, but it might feel inconvenient or even strange to do so. Besides, there's nothing wrong with using Mondstadt and Liyue characters if those are the only countries you've explored. If you haven't explored a country, then chances are you have no materials from it. This can cause issues if you're trying to build a character from that country. You'll essentially hit a wall for how much you can level and build them. That being said, if, for example, you've unlocked the waypoints and domains in Sumeru while still in the Inazuma Archon quest, then it might not feel quite so inefficient to farm for a character from Sumeru. This is a simple suggestion on how to not overwhelm yourself if you're focusing on one region at a time. Tip number 6. Use interactive maps. I personally use an online map called Genshin Impact Interactive Map, which is not directly associated with HoYoverse. However, I know HoYoverse did make their own, which I believe is accessible through the HoYoLab app if you have it. It's also accessible through a browser if you do not have this app though. These maps make it easier to locate any puzzles you've done, hidden chests that are yet to be found, and regional materials for character ascensions. For me, the biggest use this has contributed is helping me find and obtain oculi throughout Teyvat. Leveling up the Statues of 7 is quite important for the rewards you obtain, so being able to see where all the oculi are and which ones you've already obtained is super useful. I recommend marking off oculi in puzzles as you go, as you might forget which things you've already done, which could lead to a wild goose chase later on. These maps make things efficient and easy to find, and that's why I suggest using them. If you enjoy exploring without knowing if you've completed every puzzle, of course that's fine. That being said, I still recommend using a map for getting all the oculi at the very least. Tip number 7. Farm artifact domains where you want both sets or can't strongbox them. Use the strongbox for those you can. Now this is a tip I don't see all that often, which kind of surprises me. I've seen my fair share of people using the strongbox for content pieces, but rarely have I seen anyone recommending to use it. To start off, what is the Artifact Strongbox? Once you hit Adventurer rank 45, you unlock the ability to use this tool at the crafting bench. This makes this tip a little bit more applicable to veteran players, but I still think it's a good thing to keep in mind regardless. The Artifact Strongbox is located at the end of all options you have for crafting, so the third section. First, select which set you'd like to get pieces for. You then put 5-star artifacts into the Strongbox and it gives you some in return in the set you selected. Now the sets or pieces you put into the Strongbox, it doesn't matter what set those pieces are from. It can be any set and it will give you the desired set you want, just thought you should know. The stats in which pieces you get are still as random as farming a domain, unfortunately. You can put up to 39 artifacts into it, and every 3 artifacts will give you 1 in return. In other words, if you put 39 artifacts into the Strongbox, it will give you 13 in return. Now, how is this useful? Well, it's a good way to make room in your inventory for more artifacts, first of all. Where we recently saw an update that gave us more artifact storage, there's always the possibility of getting more than your bag can fit. A second use for this is getting artifacts without having to farm the corresponding domains. Sometimes farming a certain domain can be resin inefficient. This means that you're wasting your resin to an extent, as you probably only want one of the 2 featured sets. I'll use myself as an example for this. Currently, I'm in the middle of revamping Albedo. I'm seeking to put him on 2-piece Husk of Opulent Dreams with 2-piece Archaic Petra. I don't really want to farm either of these domains, as I don't care to get Retracing Bolide or Ocean-Hewn Clam in the process. I'd rather spend my resin farming for sets that are not yet obtainable via the Strongbox, such as Gilded Dreams or Song of Days Past. What I'm essentially saying is this: spend your resin on artifact domains where you want either both sets, or where you cannot get the sets from the Strongbox. Then, use the Strongbox on the sets you can. Where the pieces you get are totally random, don't dismiss it entirely. I've gotten some of my best artifacts from the Strongbox, especially in the Emblem of Severed Fate set. Tip number 8. Focus on one team at a time. This is a tip you've probably heard a lot, but it really is great advice. As you start your journey in Genshin Impact, you might have issues with having enough materials to level your characters. To prevent yourself from spreading your resources too thin, don't try to level every character you get. Instead, focus on one team, 4 characters that you like and have good synergy in a team. This will also make you very familiar with the combat abilities of your team, which can make gameplay smooth and perhaps even more enjoyable than trying to play every character you obtain. Your team should be composed of 1 DPS, which means damage per second, essentially the character who deals the most damage, with 1 or 2 sub-DPS characters, and then 1 or 2 supports, with one of them preferably being a healer. There are many variations of team lineups and compositions, so play what feels most comfortable to you. If you're struggling to build a team, I'm certain there are people out there who are willing to help. I'm also contemplating on making a guide about how to build a team, so if you guys would like that, just let me know in the comments and I'll look into it more. To sum up, focusing on one team prevents you from spreading your resources too thin, and it can create more comfortable gameplay for you. Tip number 9. Use characters you like, not characters you need, or think you need. This might be another obvious one. However, peer pressure can be very real and convincing. When you're constantly hearing about how great a character is, it can convince you that you want them, even if in all actuality you don't. I'll say it again so you get the point. Only use characters you like and want to use. If everyone is telling you to get a certain character because they're OP and your account needs them, you don't have to. I remember when so many people were saying to get Ganyu because she was the strongest DPS in the game. However, I don't desire to play Ganyu simply because her playstyle isn't my preference, so I haven't pulled for her at all. And now we have so many DPS characters that can probably outdamage her anyway. Just because people around you may say you need a character doesn't mean you should listen to them. In my experience, there's no character you absolutely need, just those who make certain aspects of gameplay easier. You'd much rather play a character you like and whose kit you enjoy than a character you felt pressured into pulling and now you have puller's remorse or buyer's remorse if you spend money on this godforsaken game. I do love this game at the end of the day. I just want you all to enjoy the game and play it in your style. Whether you're a meta follower or not, you can clear content in Genshin as long as you have the right equipment and team setup. So those are my tips for Genshin Impact, 9 in total. These might be tips you've known since day 1, or they might be completely new to you. Regardless of where you stand, I hope you enjoy this game and play it the way you want to. I know this game can be confusing at times, especially if you're new to it, so I hope these help you in any way, shape, or form. If you like this video and would like to see more from me, please leave a like. I'd be interested to hear other tips or pieces of advice you all have that I may have not mentioned, so please feel free to leave a comment as well. I'll try to read as many as I can. Thanks for listening to me talk, and ad Astra Abyssosk.